Hello, Cookies here. We're going to talk about Sun King Salvation. This is through the perspective of a Holy Paladin. I think talking about Holy Paladin specific stuff for this fight is really important because this fight is super awkward for Holy Paladin a lot of the time with like generating Holy Power and like how you should spend it, where you should put your beacon, all these things come into play. And I think there's two main playstyles you can focus on. I think that you can either put your beacon on Kel'Thas and then just focus on healing the raid and letting your healers kind of single target heal Kel'Thas, and you just focus your attention towards keeping the raid alive, and then all the beacon transfer will just kind of naturally go to Kel'Thas. Or you can do what I do in this poll here, which this is just normal, so it's not like, we're not focusing on like challenging content by any means, but it's just to show some examples of putting your beacon on your regular target, so in my case the Brewmaster Monk, and then I'm keeping Glimmer as much as possible up on Kel'Thas. And then outside of that, I'm trying to spend glimmers on the raid. So I'm like generating holy power through the raid. I'm using Crusader Strike on the ads to generate. And then I'm using like all of my holy power instead of using like Light of Dawn to get good like beacon transfers, because we don't really need those good beacon transfers since it's not on Kel'Thas. So instead we are using Word of Glory on Kel'Thas. So we're just generating holy power like we normally would in any other fight, and then healing the raid, keeping a glimmer on Kel'Thas at all times, and then spending our holy power almost just specifically on Kel'Thas, like all the time. I think the only time I start spending holy power on the raid is if, we take a lot of damage, or in the second phase when we're fighting the Shade and we don't need to heal Kel'Thas, obviously. So I think these are like the two main strategies to just go over real quick, and then, you want to be using Judgment on whatever ads you can to help heal the raid up, and because obviously you do still have to do some raid healing, especially in the higher difficulties. And then, that's pretty much it. So like spending your Word of Glories on Kel'Thas or spending your Holy Power, that's like the strategy I end up going for. And I think the other thing to mention is Infusion of Light is actually something you can press in this encounter. You can spend your Infusion of Light procs on, I think Holy Light is the best option, and you just use that on Kel'Thas himself. And that is that's pretty much the whole fight, so I'm not going to really go over too much of it besides that. I guess we can go into the intermission just to kind of show the differences between that. So here we're just following the boss around, and this is where it turns much more into like your typical kind of Holy Paladin fight, where you're just spending your resource on Light of Dawn, and you should be spending it every time that Ember Blast is cast, which is right here, Ember Blast. That's going to deal raid-wide damage. And then you have the Fiery Strike, so if people get hit by that, we want to heal them up. And then we dodge the Blazing Surge. And besides that, we're just, spending those Light of Dawns on the raid when we need to. And besides that, we're just generating Holy Power by hitting the Shade and keeping Glimmer on as many people as possible. So that's the entire fight. Hopefully that is useful to some of you in figuring out what kind of strategy you want to develop if you're not, just cheesing this fight and running like 11 healers like a lot of guilds are. That's what we ended up doing on Heroic, is we just killed it with like, I think we ran like 8 healers and most of them were Holy Priest. But if you don't have access to that kind of stuff, you do have to adapt and do the fight as kind of, as it was intended. So I'm just trying to help out people who are stuck on Holy Paladin, trying to figure out what they can do to, improve their numbers on this fight. So best of luck, and thank you for watching. Have a good one.